This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
This episode brought to you by Prize Picks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use that code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Also, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. And if you're heading to a game, maybe it's a night game, weeknight game, have a meal before you head out and check out Factor Meals. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Bedard50 off. Again, use code Bedard50 off as well to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. And if you're sitting there having the dinner from Factor Meals before you go to a game via tickets from Game Time because you won money playing Prize Picks, well, let's just hope when you're sitting there eating dinner, nothing happens to your furnace like happened to Greg's. But if it does, you can check out Naterno Home Services, Greg's home comfort company. If you're looking for a team that puts your comfort first, visit naternohome.com/Bedard. 10% off your next service could save you up to $1,000. Again, that's naternohome.com/Bedard. Woo. Got through all of that in about a minute. All right, let's get to the headlines, Greg. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff going on here. All right, so I live in Foxboro. I'm about roughly 10, 15 minutes away from the stadium, which means I'm 10, 15 minutes away from Mike Vrabel because Vrabel is at Gillette today. He's interviewing for the head coaching job. I just wanted to ask you because I don't know how much you might know here, but I thought it would be interesting to ask you. What goes on in these meetings? Because we always hear about this guy's interviewing, that guy's interviewing. This is going to be in person. This is via Zoom. What's the atmosphere in these meetings? Is it the guy getting peppered? Is Vrabel getting peppered with questions? Is Vrabel kind of setting out his philosophy? What do these look and sound like, Greg, from what you know?
Well, I normally, and of course this is different with Mike Vrabel because he's been there. He was just there last year for the Hall of Fame ceremony. So I'm sure he got a tour. A lot of times there's a lot of touring. There's a lot of meeting of different people. Depends on the organization, how it's set up, team president, GM, what have you. I have a feeling like with Vrabel, they'll probably show him the plans for the new football facility. Right. I think most of it will be a series of probably one big meeting between the Krafts, Elliott Wolf, probably Robin Glazer is going to be in on the meeting with Mike. And I think they'll have, normally you have stock question and answers that you ask all the prospects so that you can compare them. So I think a lot of it, in this case, a lot of it is going to be Vrabel talking to, the Krafts, questioning the Krafts and Wolf about, where they are, how dedicated are they, how much money are they going to put out, how staffing, how is that going to work, how's it going to work with personnel, all that stuff. So I would assume it's usually these things last, 4 to 8 hours, depending on the depth and how much you have to learn about an organization. Like I said, in this case, with Mike's familiarity with the Patriots, I don't think it needs to be that long. I think possibly, wink, wink, there might have already been some discussions about a lot of this stuff. So this might be just a formality in my mind to, Vrabel being the next Patriots head coach.
It's got to be so awkward because I don't know if you've ever been involved with a job interview, so to speak, where you know that that you're the favorite. It's like I haven't walked into an office knowing like I was the guy. It's got to be somewhat awkward. It's like Vrabel walk in and they just end up talking about life and they're just like, so how you doing, Bob? And how's it going, John? How you guys? How's it hanging? How you feeling? And then like, how's the weather been? Like if they've already talked about some of the major components of what a deal would look like, it like you said, it could be a formality. It's just funny to me how how that could go. It's like a Seinfeld episode. All right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and this is, I don't send these questions before the podcast because Greg usually zips me the format about 10 minutes before we start.
Yeah.
So here's, I don't know if you could answer this, but you just went through a couple things that Vrabel would be asking the Krafts about. If you had the top 3 things that you think Vrabel wants addressed in this meeting, maybe you rank them 1 to 3, maybe you just give me the 3 top items on his list. What do you think Vrabel needs to hear from the Krafts to make sure that he feels good about this opening?
I would say number 1 would be the ability to get alignment with personnel, whether that's Elliott Wolf or Mike Vrabel brings in his own personnel guy like a Ryan Cowden, something like that. Is that going to be an issue? Because I think Vrabel can say, well, the Jets and the Bears said that they would let me do whatever they want. And, so how do you guys feel about this? I think that's number 1. I think number 2 is, I would say the level of financial commitment to building out a first-class modern NFL program. I think that Vrabel, from what I hear, I think he learned a lot from his year being around the Cleveland Browns. And, that's a very different sort of front office than anything that they've had here with the involvement of analytics and all that stuff. And I would say the third thing that he'd want to hear or would be a priority for him. It's a good question. I mean, I guess you could group in spending on players with the second part, basically funding a modern NFL sort of unit. Because I think they would give him what are they going to stand in his way about assistant coaches? I don't know what the third thing would be. I mean, I guess money and length of contract.
Yeah.
Not that I think that Vrabel has any fear. I'm sure he has the utmost the confidence in himself and that he's going to last for a while. But he's probably still a little bit stung by what happened in Tennessee. And I think he just, getting that longevity with the contract and the money, I also think that's a formality, but I'm sure that's up there. But I think his biggest thing will be alignment.
Yeah, usually when this kind of thing happens, when you're negotiating, from my experience, and Greg, I don't know if you've had a similar experience, like the money part of it, like this to me it's not like you said an introductory meeting. These guys know each other. They know each other very well. Agents talk, back and forth happens. I'm sure Vrabel, before he walks into the office today, has a pretty good idea as far as what the money's going to look like. So as far as contractual stuff, it might be, I don't know, guarantees and how can the Krafts get out of the contract? How could Mike get out? There could be some details within that, but the bigger picture of, let's say, Vrabel wants $20 million a year. Let's just throw it out there. He knows, he knows his agent has told him where the Patriots are at. He understands if the Patriots are at like 17 and he wants 20. He knows that before walking in. I do want to ask you this. So I've been keeping an eye on it over the last 12 to 18 hours. There are no interviews set for Vrabel beyond today. Nothing official. I think the Saints have requested to talk to him, but he doesn't have anything officially on the docket. Is that telling? Like if he doesn't have anything set after today, should that tell us that he's pretty confident he's getting this job, or is that reading too much into it?
No, I would think so. I think you're reading that right. I think it's a combination of, I think the early interviews like the Jets and also the Bears. I do think that those, in his contract ending before the final week of the season, I think that was all a sort of leverage ploy by Vrabel to pressure the Krafts, the Patriots, specifically to, if they're going to make a move with Mayo, to make the move. Obviously, we know now that that did in fact happen. So I think in his mind, and you got to remember, I mean, the number one thing about when you're a head coaching candidate, the number one thing, and really it's the top three things, is the owner and the stability and the belief and, letting you go and do your job. And I think that in all these other circumstances, the Jets in particular, I think the Bears, the way that they've already said they're set up with the team president, whose name's escaping me right now, and then Ryan Poles as the GM.
Kevin Warren, right?
Kevin Warren, yep. If you're Mike Vrabel and you got screwed by, and this is the way he feels, he got screwed by Amy Strunk Adams in Tennessee, that the biggest thing is going to be comfort level with the owners, and there's nobody that he has better comfort than with the Krafts. And so I think, like I said, I think this is all a formality. We said it on the earlier pod. I think that it's just a matter of time before Mike Vrabel is named head coach of this team. I mean, could it be by the end of the week? Yeah, more likely. It's probably early next week, but we'll see.
I was going to ask you if Kraft would ever try to force Vrabel's hand to make a choice before he interviews elsewhere. But again, there's no interview set post this interview here in New England. And going off of what you just said, I'd imagine that it's okay. We feel good about this. Let me ask you before we move on to some other things, some other names. This interview goes the way we think it goes. These two sides know what the hell is going on. They've known probably well before, and I mean at least a few days before Mayo was let go, that they wanted to go down this road together, and if they were able to pretty much tie everything up, it'd be done. Is this a situation, Greg, that you think Robert at the end of the interview tells Mike, "You're our guy. Let us get through a couple of other interviews tomorrow, but you're our guy"? Or do you think Kraft leaves it open-ended?
I think if he hasn't already told Vrabel through back channels or what have you that he's their guy, I think he does say what you're laying out there. I do think he says, "Mike, you're our guy. Listen, we do want to talk to a couple more people, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, just to appease people, make this look a little bit better. But you're our guy. Go home, get packed up, get ready to be here on Monday for the press conference and hitting the ground running," sort of thing.
Hey, Mike. I can't do a Kraft. That was awful.
That was awful. I can't. I'm not.
Yeah, see, it's in my head. I think I can do it, but pretty much it's like, "Hey, Mike, pack your shit. We'll see you on Monday." Mm-hmm. That's pretty much the message. All right, before we move forward without any terrible impressions, Greg wants to tell you about Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to $1,000 on $1,000 of your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. I love sitting down for a game. I'll be doing that this weekend with the NFL playoff games. Can't wait to do it. Have a blast using the Prize Picks app. It's playoff time and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, Ben Johnson, let's jump to him, Greg. Let's say a calamity happens, like happened to Gerard Mayo in that Chargers game. Let's say a calamity happens during the interview process today. I don't know what that could be. Mike Vrabel tells Robert Kraft he hates his family, but let's say something bad happens. Do you think Ben Johnson's a good enough plan B?
to be completely honest with you, Nick, I'm not really sure. I haven't really looked into him all that much, just because I think this is going a certain way, and I don't like to make more work for myself. But yeah, I mean, I'm obviously very impressed with his offense. I'm also very impressed that he didn't just grab the first job that came his way. And I do think I actually wouldn't be surprised if Ben Johnson returns to Detroit after this whole thing is over again.
All right, let me stop you there. How many times can a guy be the belle of the ball in a hiring cycle, or at least in the top 2 or 3, and decide to stay before people go, okay, I'm not going to waste my time interviewing with this dude. He's had 2 or 3 seasons now to be a head coach, and he keeps wanting to go back to Detroit. We're done. Does that ever happen with Ben Johnson?
I don't think so. And here's why. I mean, I don't know all the details about the coaching search last year. We know where we are right now, but if I recall correctly, I don't think he went very far down the road with anybody. I don't know if he ever did I know it was rumored that he was the Commander's choice, that they thought they had him, the Commanders. But I think if I remember correctly, I think he pulled himself out before he did the in-person interview. So I mean, as long as Ben's not wasting people's time, which it doesn't appear to be the case, then I don't think people are going to care. But I think that Ben is close to some people who have counseled him about being a high-priced coordinator with a good situation. Those are really good jobs, and not to take that for granted. And so I just wonder. I mean, look, if the Patriots was open for real, I think he definitely would have went down the road
for real.
Yeah. He would have gone all out, because I do think this is a really good job between the Crafts, Drake May, the cap space, the draft pick, all that stuff. I would be surprised if he goes all the way through with the Bears, but who knows? I think, weren't there reports earlier that he wanted the Bears job last year if Eberflus was fired? We'll see if that ends up being the case.
Ben Johnson's an interesting guy. I think I'd be fine, but I wouldn't be super secure about it. I'd look at Brian Flores. The thing about Johnson, Phil Perry, I don't know. I don't have sources, right? Greg has the sources. Phil Perry has sources. All those guys have sources. I don't have any sources. Okay. But my source is Greg. So, but from what I heard Phil Perry say, he described Ben Johnson as an introvert. And that's fascinating to me in this market. I don't know if that works. Yep. I don't know if that would fly. And
I worry about the Adam Gase factor with Ben Johnson.
And James Palmer talked about, how Johnson is he's so wrapped up in what he does, his job. And he doesn't he kind of gets tunnel visioned. And Perry was talking about this too. He's on his laptop. He's just working, right? He's in the lab, baby. I'm in the lab. I'm cooking up something great for this weekend. Can he extend himself from that? Can he be an overall leader of men? And I find it interesting because Mike Garafolo, I just pulled this up as you were talking, Greg, because you asked about the Washington thing and what happened. Now, this is Garafolo. Maybe some other insiders have different vibes. Mm-hmm. But here's what Garafolo said about Ben Johnson and his interviews. This was, not only the Washington job, but also the Seattle Seahawks head coaching position. Johnson was a reported finalist for both. Here's what Garafolo said, quote, "I don't think he interviewed particularly well. I don't think he really bowled people over in the interview process at all. I've heard that his personality, he's very smart, very bright, great play caller, but I've heard that personality is kind of not the most gregarious guy." So that kind of goes into what Phil's saying, which is introverted, in his computer, not running around smacking guys on the ass. And my question, Greg, about that is Dan Campbell is so gregarious. He's so overwhelming when it comes to his personality. I don't know. Like, if you're Robert Kraft, if you're an owner, I don't know how you separate what Ben Johnson does as an OC and like how his offense plays and like how those guys have energy and attitude. How much of that is because of Johnson? How much of that is because of Campbell? And if Ben Johnson walks in the room and he sits down, he's like, and I know he's doing a Zoom, but if he's over the Zoom, he's like, hey, how's it going? Ben, how do you feel? I think I can run a great offense. I've run a great offense in Detroit. And he's like, awkward and kind of just introvert. Then you look at that and you go, oh, that team, Detroit, is because of Dan Campbell. Like, he's the personality of that team. He's the leader of that team. I don't know if this guy can walk into a room and get my guys fired up. So I understand people. And look, again, I'd probably be fine with Ben Johnson because most of these guys are unknowns. I might slide Flores ahead of him, but you're talking about a lot of guys. They all have questions about him. Speaking of that, Aaron Glenn, does he even take the interview?
I bet he doesn't, but I have no inside knowledge on that. I just think that, it seems like, at least from the reporting, it seems like it took them a little while to get to Aaron Glenn wasn't it the first day? Wasn't it Monday that they requested to talk to Ben Johnson? And then all of a sudden, like the middle of the week, they get around to Aaron Glenn.
Yeah. It might have even been like Sunday night.
Yeah, it very well could have been. As we talked about why rush firing Mayo? Why, Tony, you don't even let him go home after the last game before you fire him? I mean, that was just breathtaking. A reason to do that is because you want to get all the requests out and everything as soon as possible. I would doubt that he'd do it. I think that he has better connections and better chances with like the Saints and the Jets, two places that he played as a player.
Yeah, I think he ends up in New Orleans. I think he's going to end up being the Saints guy. All right, before we get to more, we have a lot more, folks. Greg's going to tell you all about our friends at Game Time.
Game Time is an app that I use to get tickets. You got to be there in person. Now the Patriots are done. Now it's Celtics, and boy, the Bruins stink too. But that means that you can actually afford to maybe go to a game now for these. And of course, the Celtics are a wagon because they just are. But you got to go to Game Time to get in. I love the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. I love the panoramic view from the seat in the app. So you can check that out before you buy. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Greg, do you care that this process hasn't been necessarily wide-ranging as far as a coaching search?
No. The short answer is no. And for this reason, if there wasn't a candidate that the Krafts were very familiar with, has a great track record, has experience, what you're going to get. If Mike Vrabel wasn't a candidate out there, and I don't know, maybe it was in the bag for somebody else, say even like a Brian Flores, then yes, I would feel worse about it. But look, the Krafts just went through what they did with Belichick. They did the Mayo thing. They did, he had no experience. He was in over his head. They've gone 4-13 consecutive years. I mean, you could hear the frustration when Kraft talked about it in the press conference, and he said, I didn't want to go through this again. And basically anybody else other than Mike Vrabel, you're inviting the possibility of 4-13 again, because you just don't know what you're going to get. With Vrabel, you know what you're going to get. And I think he has an absurdly high floor. I also think he has a high ceiling, but even if you disagree with that, Vrabel knows how to win games. He knows how to keep teams competitive, even if they're not the most talented team. So, and I know, I don't know if we talked about the Rooney Rule on Tuesday, but,
Oh, we did. Yeah.
It is what it is. what's the saying? Don't hate the player, hate the game. I mean, look, the rules are there. They've structured it in terms of like you can't do in-person interviews until like after January 20th, after the divisional round. Like, and you're in a situation where the Patriots and the Krafts, like, and we know the Krafts like to move quickly. Like they want to move on. They want to get the fans excited. They want renewals of season tickets and all that stuff. And I don't know if that's really happening like February 1st. Like they just want it over with. They got a guy who they know, who they trust, who they think has the potential to be a great head coach and win Super Bowls. Like, let them do their business. I mean, I don't have a big problem with it. I'm not one of these people who's going to stand on a box and say, it's a sham and all that stuff. I did that last year. There's no point in me doing it again. Like it sucks. It's not in the spirit of the Rooney Rule, but look, at least they're not wasting anybody's time. If they know what they want, it'd be worse if they were wasting everybody's time. If they were wasting Aaron Glenn's time, if they were wasting Brian Flores' time in terms of, waiting for them to go through the process and coming back for an in-person interview on January 20th. At least they're being honest about it. And from all appearances, they're basically saying like, look, we know him. We know Vrabel. He's our guy. We're not going to waste anybody's time. We're going to do what we have to do according to the league office. But other than that, we're going to get the guy that we want.
So I felt a little bit better about this search. Yesterday, I was doing my podcast. You can check it out, Nick Cattles Show, YouTube channel. I was doing my podcast yesterday, and I went like 35 minutes ranting and raving about the sham because I do think it was a sham. And then the Glenn news came out, and I said, well, if they interview Glenn, then I feel better about it because at least Glenn is a legitimate candidate. Now, we can talk about the timing, and you certainly could say the timing provides the plausible deniability for the Krafts. We didn't just interview Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich. We also slid Aaron Glenn in there. And I understand that. And I wouldn't kill anybody for having that opinion. Let me just put it that way. But I'll give the Krafts the benefit of the doubt. I'll say that, they looked at the list and they came up with the best offensive candidate, which is Ben Johnson. They came up with maybe the best defensive candidate. You could argue Brian Flores, of course, in that conversation. You could maybe mention Robert Saleh. And they got the best, experienced program guy in Mike Vrabel. So if those are the three that they interview, inevitably they know their job. They know that their opening is prized. It's coveted. And if you bring in the best offensive guy, one of the best defensive guys, and then the program builder with the history and Mike Vrabel, then I don't have as much of an issue. But I still think that they should have interviewed more people. I think it's too incestuous for me. I'll stay consistent with the whole Mayo thing. The fact that you're not gathering information and intelligence from other people, how other programs do it, trying to create relationships with other people. You really haven't had a head coaching search in 25 years, and you have an opportunity to look around and learn things. And I always think it's good to learn things and educate yourself and educate your franchise. And I don't think they're doing that as well as they could have. Not even close. I do think it was a rush job. And I also would say this, one more thing before we move on. I hear people say like, well, what happens? You might lose Vrabel if you drag your feet. You could have done both things. You could have interviewed more people this week and still ended up landing Vrabel by the end of the week. You could do that. If you put in the request on Sunday night, like yesterday, Wednesday, they did nothing. From what I understand, they didn't interview anybody yesterday. So you had a full day that you could have brought in 2 or 3 guys, even via Zoom or whatever. Robert Saleh's taking interviews. Anthony Weaver's taking interviews. They did not even reach out to Brian Flores. Now, maybe they didn't reach out to Brian Flores because they like Brian and they didn't want to, insult him by reaching out to him when they know they're going to hire Vrabel. But I thought they had an opportunity to do more, and they have failed at doing so. And if they end up hiring Vrabel, if we find out tonight that Vrabel's the guy and they don't interview Johnson and or Glenn tomorrow, then that is a joke. Because, I mean, what are we doing? Again, I get the ultimate goal, and I'm fine. Mike Vrabel's my number one candidate. I wanted him last year. Greg and I talked about this before Mayo, right? Before the succession language. We both said Vrabel. I wanted Vrabel from the beginning of last year, okay? So I won't be mad if they land on Vrabel. I'll be very happy if they get Vrabel, and I think they're going to get Vrabel. But I still think you could do a lot more with this process to help your football team and your overall structure. And they're going to swing and miss. They're just going to swing and miss. All right. Couple of rapid fire questions, Greg, before we get to some Vrabel criticisms that I wanted to pass by you. Lightning round style. There's lots of talk about the staff, Greg, not developing the rookies. It goes back to Elliot Wolf's comments to Henry McKenna, Fox Sports. Mike Giardi, your guy Giardi at BSJ, had more about that this week. And this is something I brought up to Matt McCarthy on 98.5. And I'm not trying to absolve Elliot Wolf. I just find it a fascinating conversation. Jalen Polk completely, failed this year. How do you split up the blame pie, Greg? Like when you look at it, how much is on the player? How much is on Wolf evaluations and getting it wrong? And how much is it on the positional coaches? I don't know the answer to that, but I think that could inform us about, hey, is Elliot Wolf an absolute unmitigated disaster? Is Jalen Polk going to be absolutely useless in 2025?
Right. I mean, the obvious answer is I'm not sure. And if I put too much in certain areas, people are going to think that I'm a Elliot Wolf apologist and all this stuff, which I'm not. I mean, but I will say this, like, and this is the way I looked at it. And this is, from watching the film all year, being at all the practices. And I know, let's start here. Elliot Wolf comes from a background with the Packers via Ted Thompson. Probably his dad lesser so, but certainly Ted Thompson. And I do think that Brian Gutekunst has carried this over. Those guys went young and left it onto the coaches. It was important. They very much valued really good coaching, and it went hand in hand. It was we're going to give you this young talent, but it's on you to do your job and develop these people. So he comes from that background. And I'm not saying it's right or what, but that's the background. That's what I think he was trying to set up here, or is trying to set up here, where we're going to go young. It's not optimal, but you're going to have to coach up the team. That's the way it works in Green Bay, and has for years. I think you look at this team as a whole, outside of Drake May, I think you'd be hard, and maybe Gonzalez, but then again, we didn't see a lot of Gonzalez's rookie year. He might just have been this good. And same with Drake May. I think they're both just that good. Can you point to anybody developing on this team? Has anybody improved? Has there been more improvement or more regression in the players? And I think that's the biggest evidence to me that for whatever reason, and I think it was a marriage between an offensive coordinator who just sort of runs his system and doesn't really adjust to the talent that he has enough. I mean, certainly in some of the things that he allowed Drake May to do, he did, but in terms of actually game planning to win that game, I'm talking about helping out the tackles and keeping people in and, simplifying concepts. But the marriage between the offensive coordinator and some of the position coaches, whether it's Scott Peters on the offensive line, Tyler Hughes at wide receiver, the running backs coach. I think you combine those two things, and I do not think that the coaching was good enough. And, where does the blame fall on that? Part of it's on Wolf. A lot of it's on Mayo because he didn't have a Rolodex. But if, in my opinion, and I know people are going to be like, well, you're just a Wolf guy or whatever. From my experience in the National Football League, I saw the lack of player development among the coaches as the biggest problem on this team.
Andrew Callahan said in his story today, Boston Herald, great stuff from Andrew and Doug Kide, that there's a feeling, he had a source that says Wolf doesn't put his foot down enough with the rest of his staff, that he doesn't kind of just stand by and say, I'm the guy calling this shot. This is what we're going to do. Do you hear any of that?
Yes, and I could definitely see that. I mean, I do think that look, Elliott's a nice guy. There was some poll, I forget who did it, but there was some poll about asking agents, like, who are the personnel executives that you trust the most or enjoy dealing with the most? And Wolf got really high grades. Like, Wolf is he's a nice guy. He has contacts throughout the league, and he's sort of no nonsense. Like, he's not gonna BS you. Like, if he's dealing with an agent, like, he's gonna make a real contract offer. He's not gonna just dick around. I think that's why we saw so many of the Patriots like re-sign, and some of them you could have said they overpaid, but I think Elliott's just like, look, this is the value on this guy. We're just going to offer him this much. We're not going to like lowball him and do that sort of thing that Belichick would do. But I do think that Elliott, I think as a whole, this whole Patriots moving on from Bill thing, I think there was way too much, whether it was Mayo, whether it was Wolf, I think it was the both of them. There was way too much being like, we're going to be anti-Bill, and we're going to collaborate more, and we're going to talk to these people. And then where, I think Wolf knows his stuff. And I think if he put his foot down a little bit more, and just let himself be himself, I think he would have been a little bit more successful.
I just want to add this about the Callahan beast before we move on. I found this an interesting part of it. And Greg last year reported a lot about Mayo rubbing people the wrong way. And I think that report rubbed some people the wrong way. And, but now as more is getting uncovered about Gerard Mayo as a head coach, I think Greg can walk around if he wanted to through the hallways with his chest out, proud as a freaking peacock. Because I read this from Callahan today. One staffer after the Cincinnati win. Here's what he told Callahan and Kide. Quote, after we won, Mayo was the happiest guy bouncing off the walls during the week. The happiest guy in the world. And after we lost, it was like someone shot his dog. Meanwhile, most of us are in there watching the tape of the Bengals game, and it's like, oh shit, we were so lucky to win this game. I don't know if he watched the tape before taking that victory lap. We really lucked out there, and obviously the rest of the season bore that out. So I think that's, Greg has talked about, he's reported about how Mayo, when the defense was playing well last year, he kind of just, he'd walk into those meetings like, hey, my side's fine. My side's fine. Fix your side. And, Greg, I think you used the word arrogant. And I think from the multiple reports this week, you can absolutely take that away from this reporting that there was an air of arrogance from Mayo, believing that he knew much more than he actually did know, and how he handled certain things behind closed doors. Just kind of strikes you as somebody that, hey, my stuff don't stink.
Yeah. I mean, good job by Andrew and Doug, putting all that stuff together. I don't know about you. I didn't find a whole lot new in there. But they did get some good quotes, and obviously talked to a bunch of people and sort of put it all together. I mean, it basically painted the landscape of the whole thing. What's funny about that anecdote about when they lost, it was like his dog was shot. What's funny is that in Bill's last year, it was the exact opposite. I can't tell you how many people I talked to were just like, and this is before they knew about the succession language, but a lot of people who were on staff was like, they're all miserable, being like, how can we figure out how to win games and, do this? And there's Mayo, like, happier than pig and shit, while all these other people are miserable. So last year, they were the miserable ones. He was happy. The losses didn't affect him. And now this year, because he's in charge and his name's on it and his face is on it, now he's miserable. It's not surprising, but it's just interesting, the juxtaposition on that.
You won't be miserable if you try Factor meals. Greg, tell him about it.
That's right. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well and easy. They're dietitian approved. You're ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week. It's easy to pick meals tailored for your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, which is the ones I get. Factor can help you feel your best all day long, along with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-on. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. I love the meals. They come ready for you. Really, you just open them up and pop them in 2 minutes. You get a great tasting meal. I love the sauces on all these meals. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Bedard50 off and use code Bedard50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code Bedard50 off at factormeals.com/Bedard50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
All right, so let's say Vrabel's the guy. Mike Giardi again at BSJ has some thoughts on the staff that Vrabel could have. So let's try to speed this up. Some of that was my fault last segment, starting with the long question that I asked you to start the lightning round that ended up not being a lightning round. Mike Giardi on the staff. So Josh McDaniels, his name comes up again. Greg, sell us on why Josh McDaniels would be a great pick.
Because I think, and nobody's really talked about this. It's one thing to get an offensive coordinator, play caller, offensive coordinator. That's great. With a young quarterback like Drake May, who's going to be the franchise, for years to come, you need not just an offensive coordinator and play caller. You need a master teacher of the quarterback position. And I think that Josh's resume on that speaks itself. So I think Josh is one of these rare people who is an expert at coaching the quarterback, but is also an expert at game planning and play calling. To me, if that happens, and look, I don't have any information on it. Last I heard, I don't think I think it's not a done deal. It's far from a done deal. I do think that Josh has other options, but he still lives locally. And I think whatever he does next, it's going to be in the best interest of his family. And you would think that staying in his house and going back to work at Gillette would be that, but who knows? We'll see what the McDaniels end up doing at the end of the day. But I just think Josh is terrific. I mean, look at what he did with Mac Jones and a bunch of new people on offense that year. Remember, they brought in all, new tight ends, new wide receivers, all that. They were like 6th in the league in points with Mac Jones, who, look what he's become. Imagine what he can do with Drake May and maybe some real talent. Bill never really gave him any, true talent out there. I think he's tremendous. Look what he did, bringing up, especially, like Garoppolo and Matt Castle and Mac Jones, and look what he got out of Cam Newton for a lot of that season. Jacoby Brissett beat an undefeated Texans team. I think he has a great resume. I think the offense is good. I think it can be used for anybody. Again, example, Mac Jones's rookie year. Everybody says that system's too complicated. That was really a Brady issue. Josh will make it as simple as it needs to be, and I think he'd be great for Drake May and for the Patriots in general.
The two other OC names brought up by Giardi, Tommy Rees, Todd Downing. Any thoughts?
Not really. I mean, both those guys, I would worry about how much of an expert are they coaching the quarterback. I think that Tommy Rees is probably going to get promoted in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Who was the other guy? Downing. Downing is more of, if I remember correctly, he's more of like a tight ends coach type of guy. I mean, look, those guys are possible, but they better have kick-ass quarterback coaches that they're bringing with them, because that's the most important thing. I think, who's in the ear of the quarterback, how many, is a vital question that I think the Crafts were asking even last year, and certainly they will this offseason.
Any shot AVP would stay as the quarterback's coach?
I don't completely rule it out, but again, let's just it depends on like the marriage and like who's the offensive coordinator and does he work with that system. I think it'd be, if it was an old school West Coast guy, I think it's possible if he doesn't have any other options, but I wouldn't say it's probable.
Shane Bowen is the name for the defensive coordinator. Any thoughts on Bowen? He's currently at New York for the Giants. There's some thought that maybe the Giants move on from him. Any idea on Bowen?
I've just heard from a couple of people that he's not very impressive. That, I mean, look, I don't know, I'm not telling you this, but you're also getting Mike Vrabel, and unlike Gerard Mayo, Mike Vrabel actually knows how to coach defense and will help that side of the ball a lot if it needs it. And that combination was really good especially with rushing defense. Bowen and Vrabel did a nice job together. If they work together well, and that's why, like, if Vrabel can get a guy like Josh McDaniels as the basically head coach offense, and he was even that under Bill Belichick in the later years, that frees up Vrabel to do all his Vrabel things, like tinkering with the defense and game management and thinking up crap to do during the game. That's the best situation for Vrabel.
Offensive line coaches, Jason Hoff-Tailing and Keith Carter. Do you know either of those guys?
Nope. Never heard of either of them.
Awesome. What would you do, by the way, Greg, at wide receivers coach? You have any names in your brain kind of jostling around?
I don't, but they better find a good one because they need to get out of this crap that they're in.
Well, Greg found a good one with Noturno. Tell him about it.
That's right. I did. And thank God I did, because it's freaking freezing outside. And I'd be a popsicle if it wasn't for Noturno. When it comes to keeping my home comfortable this winter, there's nothing more important than having a reliable team to handle things like heating, cooling, and plumbing. That's why I'm so glad I work with Noturno Home Services. These guys are local. They are family-owned and family-focused, and have been servicing the greater Boston area for 15 years. I told you guys about it. They came out to do a site inspection. I wasn't getting heat. Upstairs was 53 freaking degrees that morning. I said, hey, can you check it out, see what's going on here? And they said, yeah, no problem. They realized there was a faulty valve. I had like 4 days until installation. Guess what? They installed a new valve for free just to make sure I could get home, get all the way to installation day. Who does that in this day and age? Not many, but Noturno does, because that's just the type of company they are. They were on time, professional, and made the entire process stress-free. I couldn't have asked for a better experience. Noturno isn't just about heating either. They're my go-to for plumbing, cooling, even water and air quality solution. They've got the expertise to handle whatever you need. Here's the best part. You can get 10% off your next service with Noturno. That could save you up to $1,000 on your next project. Just visit NoturnoHome.com/Bedard. That's NOTTURNO home.com/Bedard for all details and conditions. Take advantage now. These deals won't last forever. Trust me, having a team like Noturno Home Services in your corner makes all the difference. Whether you need a quick repair or a major installation, they'll get the job done right. Check them out today.
Don't forget about Noturno. Check them out. Also check out BSJ, $50 for the year. Bedard, you already do great work there. Check out Prize Picks, code CLNS, get $50 instantly when you play $5. Check out factormeals.com/Bedard50 off. Use code Bedard50 off to get, you guessed it, 50% off your first box plus free shipping. And also check out Game Time. CLNS is that code, $20 off your first purchase. NFL playoff lines. Let's get through them quickly here. Chargers -3 at the Texans. Who you taking?
I like the Chargers, and they're sort of my dark horse, at least in the AFC.
Ooh, Greg loves himself some Jim Harbaugh.
I'm going to Justin Herbert.
I'm going to go with the Chargers as well. I'll go Chargers -3. I think Texans, they haven't been, consistently good for a while here. Obviously lost Dell, lost Diggs. That has hurt. So I'll go Chargers. Steelers at the Ravens. Ravens -9.5.
So I like the Ravens in this game. I don't know if I like the 9.5 for two teams that know each other that well. And I know they did just meet, and it did not go well for the Steelers. But time to lick their wounds. Time to I like the Ravens, but not to cover.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I know the Steelers have been really bad lately. Screw it. I'll be a gambling man. Ravens by 10 or more. All right. Broncos at the Bills. Bills minus 8.5.
Let's see. Broncos at the Bills. I don't think the Broncos have any shot in this game. I like the Bills big time in this one.
Bo Nix on the road, cold weather, Buffalo. I'll take Buffalo laying the 8.5. Packers at the Eagles minus 4.5. I should mention, obviously, Christian Watson tore his ACL. He's out. Jordan Love's a little dinged up with his elbow. Jalen Hurts is practicing. Said he looked sharp yesterday, coming off a concussion. Packers, Eagles minus 4.5.
This one's a tough one. I don't know what to make of the Packers. Like, sometimes they look like world beaters. Other times they don't. I also think that the Eagles are one of these teams that loves to smell their own farts and think they've accomplished something when they really haven't. So I'm going to go. I think the Eagles win, but I'm not going. They're not covering. I don't think. I think it's going to be close, like a 1-2 point game.
Yeah, Sirianni picking fights with fans and stuff.
Yeah.
What the hell is going on? I'll say Eagles by 3, so I take the 4.5 with the Packers. Commanders at Bucks. Bucks minus 3.
Good game. Probably might be. I think it's my favorite game of the weekend. That stadium, weird crap happens. I do like Jaden Daniels and all that, but I'm going. I think the Bucks win and they cover.
Yeah, I like the Bucks covering as well. I think they've done just a fantastic job. Liam Cohen, tough team. A little slow out of the gates last week, but I'll take the Bucks, I guess, to cover. Vikings minus 1.5 at the Rams, and this game might be moved to Arizona because of the wildfires out there in California. If you watch us out there in California, any of you, hope that you are safe and well. I know Kelly was looking at the map yesterday of where the fire was, and what was it? A couple Aprils ago, we actually stayed out there because we went to WrestleMania. Yeah, I'm a nerd. And WrestleMania was at SoFi, and we actually had like an Airbnb, and they evacuated the Airbnb yesterday. So we've been like right there in that area before. It's a beautiful area. It's tragic. So hopefully everybody's okay. So this game might be moved down to Arizona, Greg. But again, Minnesota minus 1.5 at the Rams.
I have much more confidence in the Vikings defense than I do the Rams defense. I just don't. I don't think the Rams are very good. I don't think they can do what Detroit did to Sam Darnold. I don't think they can get enough pressure on to make him like really jittery in this game. So I kind of like the Vikings big time in this game.
I'll go Vikings minus 1.5. That'll do it. This has been a long episode. I think it was worth it. You get a lot of information, a lot of good information from Greg. Of course, all eyes now on the coaching search in air quotes. We'll see. We'll see if Vrabel is head coach tonight, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday. They can't announce it over the weekend, right? During the football games, Greg, is that correct?
Normally not. Not officially. Could leak out though.
Yeah. We might have some leakage on a Friday. I'll
be checking out Adam Schefter this weekend before the games.
All right. Go Notre Dame football. Everybody be well.
Yeah. Go Irish.
Go Irish. See you.